All right. Hello again, Avengers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 276, and I'm going to talk about Pokemon TCG show over on Geek and Sundry again, because I watched the second one. If anyone, first things first, there's going to be some spoilers in this for how the episode goes, because I have to talk about the things in order to kind of critique them. I didn't say this in my last video, so I specifically put spoiler in the title, but this is your warning. If you haven't watched it yet and you don't want to find out things like who wins, stop watching this, go watch it, and then come back to this, because I still want you to watch my video. So, and then we'll watch my last video. Some of the big critiques I had were in two spots. One, the kind of setup was not great. Things like they don't show them putting out their basic Pokemon. I didn't quite understand why some of the roles were changed, and then at the very end, instead of allowing the game to actually end, they just go, well, it looks like you're going to win, so we're just going to let you win right now. And it just felt like this really weird anticlimactic thing. The host, I believe, I think her name is Alyssa. I'm totally wrong more often than I'm totally right. Let me see if I can't find her name. Where is it? There it is.
You can.
Yep, that was the video. Okay, so where's host? They have everybody here except the host. Anyway, it's a person that hosts it. Oh, there it is. Host Allison. There we go. So, this next episode, first things first, Allison, the host, significantly more comfortable, significantly more expressive. I had a theory last time that one of the reasons why she might have been just so kind of lifeless was the fact that she was working with Terry Crews, who is a host, a very, very well-known host. He hosts, is it AGT, I think? America's Got Talent? And he's very, very good at what he does, in addition to being an actor and everything. And he's a very large person, both physically and personality-wise. So that can be very, very intimidating. So I still think that's theoretically possible. However, I also kind of wonder if the first episode was basically kind of a proof of concept that they used to try and sell the show. I don't know. With all the money that was put into it, I don't think it could have been a proof of concept, to be blunt. So anyway, by the second episode, she's significantly better. She still makes a few mistakes that I'm not particularly fond of, but overall, it was better. The guest is, going to mispronounce the name again, but Jacob Batalon, who, if you're a fan of the Marvel movies, you'll recognize him as Ned from the Spider-Man movies, Peter's guy in the chair. He doesn't know what he's doing in this, which he's very... he mentions over and over and over again, to the point where Allison kind of has to kind of coach him a little bit, which is perfectly fine. He's still really entertaining. He's not kind of the force that is Terry Crews, but still very, very entertaining. One of the things that I thought was a huge improvement is there's still an interview aspect to this. Again, very similar to Hot Ones. If you've watched Hot Ones, while they're eating the wings, the host Sean will just start asking these extremely specific questions. And it kind of feels the same way here, where after every turn or so, the host will interject some kind of question for the guest to answer. And one of the things that I liked about this episode a little bit better than last one, I think almost every single episode was an ad read, where she literally had cards in front of her where it would go, in the Pokemon game, one of the most important things is to choose your Pokemon. Guest, what is your favorite Pokemon? And it's just not, it doesn't feel good. It feels like blatantly obvious that, oh, you're trying to sell us something and you're selling us badly. This time, I want to say about half the questions, there were no note cards. She was just asking questions. Another thing that she did a lot better this time is she asked follow-up questions every so often. One of the most important aspects of running a good interview is knowing when to ask follow-up questions and what kind of follow-up questions to ask. And the best interviewers will be able to take an answer and come up with a follow-up question that makes their guests look really, really good. And bad interviewers will just let dead air hang for a while. So in the last video, it was, again, there was these pre-written questions, and Terry would give very, very good answers, and then he would return. This time, the questions were a little bit more fluid. She still had ad read questions, or it'd be like, in the world of Pokemon, friendship is magic. What is your friendliest ship? You know, just kind of really blatant, hi, we are here to sell a game. However, these questions were done with a lot more emotion. It felt like she actually had time to rehearse those questions before. Because again, that's one of the things that a lot of people don't quite understand about reading something live. Whether it's in D&D and you're reading box text, or whether you're using cue cards, or you have like lines hidden around the set or something like that, you still, just because, or if you're using a teleprompter, you still have to actually rehearse what you're saying before you say, even though you have the words in front of you, if you don't rehearse it, it will come out wrong. So it felt like she had rehearsed them a little bit more, came out a little bit more in her voice, as opposed to this is an ad read. If you're not familiar with, well, you probably have heard the term voice before. But what I mean when I say in her voice, when you are reading something written by someone else, it is very easy for it to sound strange because it's someone else's words coming out of your mouth. So people, like actors in general, will learn how to take someone else's words and learn how to say them in their own voice, or if you're playing a role, in the voice of the character that you're portraying, as opposed to the voice of the writer. So it really, really felt that she had kind of figured out how to put her own voice in and make it just work a little bit better. So those are the good things. Bad things are significantly smaller list this time. I'm still not particularly fond of how little they explain how the game works. I will say this time, I don't know if I just missed it in the last episode or they actually did different editing and the things like that in this particular episode, but they had a lot more times where they would show the card on screen. It was still very, very fast because it's to get an entire game in, plus all the ad questions and everything like that. You have to keep things going pretty brisk. So I speed read, so I generally didn't have a problem reading everything, but someone that doesn't speed read would not be able to get the full text of any of the cards, which is a little bit annoying, but understandable in the format. I am starting to understand And again, it would make more sense if they actually explained at the beginning of something. But it seems like with these particular decks, the decks that they use, they have a signature Pokemon in the deck. Very similar, if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, to like the Commander playstyle, where you have your Commander in the deck and you always have the ability to have your Commander out. Basically, these decks play like Pokemon Commander decks, is what I can tell, because each time gameplay starts, the players always have the basic version of the signature Pokemon for that out on the board, and they have nothing on their bench. Again, this is not how I'm familiar with the Pokemon TCG playing. Generally, what happens is you draw your hand, you look for basic Pokemon, and you'll start by putting your active Pokemon out, and you'll both put active Pokemon out, and then you will put your bench Pokemon out, and then you flip a coin to see who goes first. And that's just not how this particular version of play is played. And again, I don't know if this is a particular version that they created for this show, if this is how Pokemon the TCG is just played now, and I wasn't aware that everybody has like a signature Pokemon in their deck or something. None of that is explained, and it does make for kind of a frustrating watch. In addition, when they're using their abilities and stuff like that, the Pokemon TCG is a remarkably complicated game. It didn't used to be, but any game that survives as long as it has gets... any TCG that survives as long as it has gets complicated very, very quick. And so there's a lot of interactions between cards and stuff like that that they just kind of do. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to use this. And it's just so fast-paced that it's very, very difficult to follow. Again, if I was more familiar with how the Pokemon TCG played, I probably have no problem following it. But I haven't played in a decade and a half, easily. Probably 20 years was the last time that I played it, way back in the 90s. Man, I guess it's 30 years now. Nearly 30 years ago. And the game is so different now. I really wish they had more in here that would allow people that don't understand the game to understand what was going on. Because I had to infer a lot. Which is, again, something that I do. And I was able to follow along well enough. But someone that doesn't know anything about the Pokemon TCG, I would say is probably going to get lost really, really quickly. Another thing that I'm just not particularly fond of is the back wall. Again, the back wall is a giant screen, which could be very, very cool. But for almost the entire game, the only thing that they use this extremely expensive back screen for is they do a coin toss, which, because it's a digital coin toss, it seems fake. You don't watch the coin be flipped. You just see the coin appear there, and then it goes one time, and then it chooses. Remarkably enough, both times the guests have been on, the guests have been the one that get to choose if they want to go first or second. Which, again, from a statistical standpoint, is not that difficult. You've got a 50% chance of them getting it right in each situation. So for them to get it right twice, you're still looking at a 25% chance of that happening. That's not an astronomical number. But it still feels really, really fake. I would much rather see them flip an actual coin, and that would make it feel like it's like, oh no, you go first. Or just get rid of the coin flip entirely. If you're going to rig it so that the guest gets to choose who gets to go first, because that's what happens in the Pokemon TCG. When you flip the coin, it's not, if you guess it right, you go first. When you flip the coin, you get to choose who goes first or second. And it's actually not uncommon for players to choose to go second, because the person that goes first can't attack on their turn, but the person that goes second actually can attack if they have enough energy on their active Pokemon to make an attack. Now, depending on the Pokemon you have, that can be very, very difficult, especially now with the crazy Pokemon that they have. A lot of them have 2 and 3 energy cost attacks as their only attacks. So there is a bit of strategy to it, but it's still both. If we get to the third one and magically the guest gets to choose again, I'm going to assume it's rigged, because again, the animation of it doesn't look like a coin toss. It just looks like you're showing the 2 faces and then you just stop on the second face, which just happens to be the one that they always choose. And then the only other time they use that is at the very end. They will make this big deal about, in Magic the Gathering we call it lethal. There's a phrase that goes, "Oh, you have lethal," which basically means you have enough damage on the board that you can reduce their life points total to 0. They call it having lethal, and that means that you're about to win the game. I can't remember the phrase that they use, but it's effectively, it means the same thing. It's, oh, you're about to win the game. And so the entire back wall does this weird, like, iris from Stargate SG-1 thing where it kind of closes, and then a symbol that looks remarkably similar to the Nerdist symbol, except it's missing a couple key features, shows up. And this time they actually let Jacob win. Again, last time they just said, well, you know, it looks like you're going to win, so we're going to give it to you. This time they actually let Jacob kill the final Pokemon, take the last 2 prizes. So, again, it's a weird choice to do, and it feels very much like, well, we spent all this money, we have to do something with this giant screen in the back. And it's, the set screams, we poured a shit ton of money in this, please watch us. And for me personally, that is a fantastic way to tank a YouTube channel, is to go, well, if we throw enough money at it, then it will be successful. That's one of the things that tanked the original Geek and Sundry Twitch channel. That was probably the biggest reason why the Tabletop News YouTube channel immediately failed, was they just went, well, we're just going to throw a shit ton of money at this, and they didn't take the time to actually create a good show. So anytime I see a YouTube channel that is just throwing shit tons of money into a brand new thing, that gives me a really, really bad taste in my mouth, especially at this level. Like, if you look at the set is absolutely immaculate. If they actually, to me, it seems like they had to have built this set specifically for this show. And as of right now, it seems like there are only 3 episodes of this show. The trailer only had 3 different Giga guests. We haven't heard anything else about anything more. These 3 episodes might have been a proof of concept kind of thing, where if they do really well, then Geek and Sundry can get more episodes. But as of right now, like, the episode launched today. It's got a little under 3,000 views. Geek and Sundry's YouTube channel has 2.3 million subscribers. I'm going to go back real quick and just see how the other one did. Yeah, the other one, which has been out for a week, has about 81,000 views, which for a YouTube channel as large as Geek and Sundry, getting less than 100,000 views is not great, especially when you are bringing on people like Terry Crews and you're using a brand as recognizable as Pokemon. Like, to me, 81,000 views is not going to pay for that set in any way, shape, or form. And 3,000 views in 5 hours is really not going to do that. I have videos that have more than 3,000 views. Not much more. And I have less than 1,000 subscribers. They have multiple orders of magnitude more subscribers than I do, and they are struggling to get views on this. Now, part of this is the Geek and Sundry brand has been destroyed by Legendary Digital Networks. So it's going to take time for them to be able to win their people back. But still, they still have 2.3 million subscribers, and they're struggling to get any kind of views. Like, I'm looking at the newest stuff here. Sagas of Sundry Goblin Mode. The trailer has 15,000 views. The first episode has 23,000 views. And then the second episode goes down to 5,000 views. The third one, 4,000. The most recent one is 2,000. They're just, no one's watching this show. The Pokemon TCG is getting better, but it's just not going anywhere. And so the fact that they threw all of this money into this set, and again, the idea of a wall-sized screen that is only used to flip a coin and then do a cool little animation to show that you have lethal, is not a good investment. There's a billion different ways that they could have spent that money to make this better. Doing a few practice shows with a test audience or something to figure out what was going wrong. Maybe that would have done that. Spend a little bit more money on text overlays and things like that so that you can understand the game better. So, yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the episode, but it's becoming increasingly more frustrating to me that I can't understand a lot of what's going on without having to stop the video and kind of look and see where the board is and stuff. Like, this is supposed to sell me the Pokemon trading card game. They're trying to use celebrities to sell it, and what it's coming off as is a poorly written interview show that uses a trading card game as an excuse to ask questions. Which isn't why I'm tuning into this. I want to watch, like, they had a show called Spell Slingers years ago where Sean Plott played Magic the Gathering against celebrity guests, and it was unbelievably fun to watch. And this one, again, it wasn't done pleasant. I don't regret watching it, but it's not something I'm ever going to watch again. Compared to something like Spell Slingers, where I will re-binge that entire series multiple times because it's just really good fun. Despite the fact that I know who wins, it's still unbelievably entertaining to watch. And they explain how the game works. Sean is very, very good at kind of explaining everything as you go, whereas Alyssa here kind of tells Jacob what to do without really explaining the why behind it. Which is good. It's one of the reasons that Jacob won, was that she said, oh, and you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this. But she never explained the why, which means that without Alyssa there, Jacob would have lost. And if Jacob decides to play this game against someone else, he 100% will lose. Against anyone that actually understands what they're doing, because he was never taught how to play the game. He was told what to do when playing the game. So, yeah, like, there's a lot of potential in this. And again, the first 3 episodes were filmed before any of us got to see anything. So if they realize there are problems, there's really not a whole lot they can do right now with these first the 3 episodes. It's just not something that can happen. The most they could change is they might be able to change a little bit of the editing and stuff like that, because that they still technically have the ability to do. It wouldn't be easy, because creating shows like this, like the editing process in and of itself is probably 20 to 40 hours worth of editing work per episode, easily. So, because you have, they have at least, 2 or 3 different camera angles on each one of the players, and then I think they have one that's a little bit more focused on the table, I don't think they have an overhead or anything like that, so you can actually see the table. But and then they do have overlays in this one. Again, I can't remember if they had overlays in the last one, but they do kind of show cards and stuff like that to make it a little easier to follow. So those graphics and overlays could theoretically be added, like if the director is director Zach Eubank. If you don't know that name, he was the original director or producer, whatever you want to call it. He ran the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel, and the writer, as listed here, is Lucas Eubank, whom we called Cookie, but that's Zach's brother, who was also really, really influential in the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel, and then they both left to, Zach left first, and then Lucas followed relatively shortly after to go run Hyper RPG, which started off as a Twitch channel focused on live play role-playing games. And after not doing quite as well as they would have liked in that realm, they eventually transitioned to Hyper RPG. Now is a production company that may just be called Hyper now. And they produce, it says production service by at Hyper RPG. They're producing this show. So the reason that Zach is directing and Lucas is writing is because they're producing this show. So I know Zach somewhat well. We've had quite a few number of communications. I think I've spoken to Lucas maybe once. But I'm familiar with his style and everything, and this is something that Zach and I have actually had conversations about back when he was doing Hyper RPG, was the fact that he tends to focus a lot more on capturing what is happening on screen as opposed to ensuring that people understand the context of what's going on. We had a conversation years ago where we were talking about Power Rangers Hyperforce, and one of my bits of feedback is people don't understand how the game is played. You are using a proprietary system that Malika designed, which was a cool system, don't get me wrong. But because it was a system that she designed from the ground up, it didn't work like D&D, which is what most people are used to seeing. It wasn't a D20 based system at all. It used D6s, if I remember correctly. And it had a combination of dice rolling and card mechanics. And so if you were watching it, it didn't really look like people playing a tabletop RPG. It looked like a bunch of people making up stuff and then randomly rolling dice. And that made it more difficult to follow because we didn't understand when they would roll like really well, the audience wouldn't understand why they were excited. It's like, oh, I just got a squeedoocle. Well, what's a squeedoocle? We have no idea. Nobody understood. And so I mentioned, hey, maybe because they had like commercial breaks, maybe in the commercial break, have like a 1 minute or like a 2 minute little thing is like, hey, we're glad you're watching Power Rangers Hyperforce. If you're wondering how the game works, these are the very simple basic mechanics. This is what dice rolls are. This is how they use the cards. This is a good thing. This is a bad thing. And that's all it needed to be. It didn't need to be this super long involved thing. And just by playing that either in the starting soon screen or in the middle, that would, and having a link to it somewhere. It's like, hey, do you want to understand what's going on? Watch this video. Something like that makes it significantly more watchable. And they actually took that advice. I have no idea if it was actually good advice. That was just the advice I gave. We never spoke about it again. So I don't know if it actually helped Hyperforce get more power. I don't know if it helped Hyperforce get more popular or not. To be blunt, Hyperforce struggled in the very beginning simply because people didn't know what it was just in general. And then they started getting a lot of former Power Rangers on, and it got really, really popular near the end. Like JDF, Jason David Frank, rest in peace, was on there and actually played Lord Drakon in an episode. And they had, the first episode actually had, I can't remember her name, the actress that played Jen Scotts from Time Force was on there, and they had a lot of really, really good guests. They had the Gold Ranger from RPM. They had a ton of really awesome, amazing people on there. Anyway, so I know it was more popular at the end than it was at the beginning. Whether that had anything to do with my suggestion or not, I have no idea. It might be that this is a phenomenally bad suggestion. It actually hurt them. It was not something we ever talked about. For me, on the other hand, I find things like that to be incredibly useful, because the quickest way to get people to not want to watch a show is to have them not understand what's going on stream. I think that was one of the reasons why Tabletop was so effective at what it did, was because every episode of Tabletop, anytime they introduced a new mechanic, they would have a short little infographic that explained exactly how it worked. And it made every single game extremely easy to follow. And this one just doesn't do that. We can't figure out what's going on in any way, shape, or form. And again, this is not me shitting on Zach or anything. Again, he's phenomenally good at what he does. I could not do what he does. But I personally have noticed that is a weakness that he has, is he doesn't really tend to spend a lot of time explaining what's going on. He just shows you this is what's going on, but he doesn't explain why it's going on. So again, one of my rules for training, the why is more important than the what. Zach is a very what-focused person, which again, not a bad thing, but for a show like this, for a very complicated card game, you need more than here's a card and not explaining this is how win conditions work. And this is like, if I didn't already have a background in the Pokemon TCG, I would be completely lost. So, yeah. Overall, like I said, this is a step up from where it was. Jacob was a really great guest, which again is not particularly surprising. I've seen him do a lot of interviews. He tends to be relatively comfortable in them. He's not Tom Holland or Zendaya, who are just like, again, they're like Terry Crews. They're like people I would watch read a phone book. They're just really, really good on camera. But he's still very entertaining to watch. So again, this is not a bad episode. I don't regret watching it. But there's a lot of potential here. And if I didn't have the connection with the Pokemon TCG that I have, I probably wouldn't enjoy this. And if I didn't have the connection with Geek and Sundry that I have, I'd probably be significantly more critical of this. You know, those two things are leaning very heavily on, like, are giving me a bias. I'll just be honest. I have a bias for the things like this. I try to be as objective as possible, but I have a bias. And when I see something like this show that could be a slam dunk, and they're just missing really key features that, to me, are blatantly obvious they need to be in there, it's frustrating to me. So we'll see what the third episode is, and we'll see if anything happens after the third episode. If the views continue like they're happening right now, again, Terry Crews is a much bigger pull than Jacob Batalon. Again, Jacob Batalon has been in a bunch of Marvel movies and that, but he's never been the star of any of those movies compared to Terry Crews, whom everybody loves. So it doesn't surprise me that this episode, I'm going to assume, is going to get less viewers than the Terry Crews one. In addition, the first episode of any new series will always get more views on YouTube. That's just how it works. So the fact that there's nothing connecting these narratively does give the other episodes a boost. Anytime you have a narrative running through multiple episodes, you will just watch viewership go down with each episode, because you can't really jump in at episode 3 and understand what's going on. You have to go back, and that will dissuade a lot of people from starting a new series, especially if it has a lot of episodes. I'm not expecting this episode to get as many views as the Terry Crews episodes. But if none of these episodes are cracking 100,000 views, I don't see this going forward. And that's a bad thing. This could be an amazing show. And obviously they were given a shit ton of money to do this with. So there's a decent investment in this show. If they're expecting a return on that investment, I think they're going to be upset, and that can very quickly get something canceled. That's another reason why I'm not a huge fan of just putting shit ton of money into a show, because the more money you put into it, the more money you have to get out of it for it to be considered successful. And it's very, very possible that this show might get canceled or might just not get renewed simply because they put, I have no idea how much. Let's say they put 100 monies into it, and because of the views and everything in here, they only make 50 monies off of it. Well, then that's a loss. If they'd only put 20 monies into it and they still made 50, because I don't think all of the set dressing and stuff like that, I don't think it adds that much to the show. It makes it look very pretty, yes, but it would still be an entertaining show if they were, playing in a black box theater on a card table. Like, it's still going to be an entertaining show, because the thing that makes it entertaining is the card game itself, which is already very, very pretty, and the guests, who are also very pretty. So, yeah. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I think it could have been better. It's definitely a step up from the last one. I'm interested to see where they go with the next one, and I'm interested to see if this goes anywhere. Again, we have confirmation they filmed a third episode, because in the trailer, there is a third guest. So we know that the third episode is at least filmed. And more likely than not, I'm going to assume that it's going to get edited and put up, if it's not already. Because that's another thing that a lot of times they will have, the first few episodes completely done before the series even starts going, so that if they do decide to continue going, they can start filming and everything while these are going up. Because there's no way you could shoot and edit a show like this, including booking guests and everything like that, in a week. And these right now are coming out weekly, so there's no possible way they could do it in a week. But with proper planning and scheduling, you could very easily shoot probably anywhere between 3 to 6 episodes in a single filming day without too much difficulty, and then just give the footage to the various editors and be able to get things out relatively quickly. And that's generally how it's done in the TV world in general. Like, it's relatively rare if you're doing syndicated stuff. Like, this is technically syndicated. If you're doing syndicated stuff, you generally kind of shoot things in little boxes of content. Like, I was watching an interview with some former Power Rangers, and they talked about how they used to do they would film 4 episodes every 2 weeks. And so when they would do the command center stuff, where they're in the command center talking to Zordon, they would film all the command center scenes for 4 different episodes all at the same time. So they could just use that set and they'd knock it out generally in a day. So they could use that set for one day and then not have to return to it for a couple weeks. So it's an extremely common process to kind of schedule things out and do things like Whose Line Is It Anyway would tape, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 shows in a single audience would exist for like 2 or 3 shows. Wheel of Fortune, if I remember correctly, Wheel of Fortune used to shoot, I think it was 6 episodes a day when they were shooting, with 2 different audiences, or 2 or 3 different audiences. So this is an extremely, extremely common thing, and with proper planning and scheduling and stuff like that, you can pull it off really well. So yeah, I rambled a little bit, but it's because I have the utmost respect and love for Geek and Sundry. I have the utmost respect and love for Hyper, and Zach and Lucas are phenomenal, and Malika This is Zach's wife, who the last time I checked was the CEO of Hyper, has been phenomenal at what she does. So again, this is not me trying to kind of shit on anything that they're doing. They're creating a very, very pretty series. They're just making some mistakes that I don't think that they should be making. So we'll see what happens. The likelihood of anyone from Geek and Sundry ever watching this, ever watching anything that I put up, is next to nothing. They have significantly more important things to do with their lives. But maybe if I keep putting out these ideas, someone will hear it and get it to Zach or Lucas or Allison or someone. And maybe they can, or maybe parallel thinking, they'll realize the same thing that I'm saying here and just start making some changes to make this more watchable. Because again, it's still fun. It's just a very confusing fun. So it's going to be all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.